mainly so I can get a head count of who is here too. I will start, and then I'll just start calling people off by first name, and if I miss somebody at the end, folks, just chime in and introduce yourselves. I'll start. My name is David Bentley. I am the chair of the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I will pass it to the next person I see on my screen, Claudia.
Claudia Fuley, MNCCD.
Diane.
Okay.
Diane Graham-Raff from Trellis, which is the area agency on aging for the metro region.
And Daryl, I have next on my screen.
Daryl Paulson, I believe it's Region F, and I'm also the vice chair. Welcome, everybody.
John.
John Clark, District H.
Thank you, John. Patty.
Patty Thorson, and I'm representing Trellis now.
And Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Sheldon, and I represent Precinct G, as in goat.
Thank you, Carrie. Patsy.
Patsy Murphy. And I cannot remember what area I represent.
Ken.
Hear me? Okay.
I can hear you just barely.
Sorry, better now?
Still the same for me, but we can barely hear you.
Okay, Ken Rogers, District D.
Thank you, Ken. Eric.
Eric Henriksen, representing the Minnesota Council on Disabilities.
And I heard Sam, Jasmine's voice
Sam.
earlier. I'm guessing
Yep.
you're calling in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sam Jasmine, District A.
And then Heidi.
Heidi from Minnesota CCD.
Is there anybody I missed that might be calling in that is TAAC members?
I just called in. I just called in, David. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Can you introduce yourself?
Jeff Dane. Jeff Dane, Precinct D.
Fantastic, Jeff. Is there any other members that I missed?
Yes, David. This is Phil Sterner, a Metropolitan Council rep on the committee.
Thank you, Phil. You took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. We have Philip Sterner, who I'm sure will be just as glorious as Wendy was. But welcome, Mr. Sterner. All right, we have a nice full crowd here. Yes, go ahead.
David, this is Chris Bates. I didn't hear my name called.
Thank you, Chris, for calling in. Yeah, if I can't see a picture or see a name, I'm kind of just winging it on phone numbers. So if you call in and I don't call your name, it's because I have trouble discerning what phone numbers belong to who. But thank you, Chris. Man, we almost have a full slate of TAAC members here. It's a well-attended April TAAC meeting. All right. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves, Philip included. Let's get started with the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve
Jeff Dane, motion to approve agenda.
Claudia Fuley, second.
Jeff, thank you. Thank you, Claudia, for the second. I'll go down my list here and ask for a yes or no vote.
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Patty. Carrie. I'll come back, Carrie. Patsy.
Yes.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Sam. Heidi.
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Chris. And then I'll come back to Carrie Sheldon. Do you vote yes or no on the approval of the agenda?
Have to turn
I
on your
see
mic.
you're muted.
I'm not seeing, the subcommittee for the report, the, committee that I'm on for accessible, the accessibility, for the buses.
So would you like us to add that work group or subcommittee to the reoccurring
That's
monthly agendas, Carrie?
that was my assumption, yes.
Okay, I'm more than happy. Did you want me to add it to this month's? Is there an update from that group, from that subcommittee? Do you want me to add it to this month's, or should we
I
save it for
thought
next
there
month?
was, but, I don't see, the gal that, I already forgot what her name is, that was heading the committee yesterday, or the other day, or last Monday. So, maybe there isn't an update, so I would probably put it on for next month. But at this point, I will say yes, I approve the agenda.
Thank you, Carrie. And we can chat offline about putting that on the agenda.
Also, if we're in still discussion about the agenda, I believe there is a goal line update today. My
Okay.
staff.
And I think
So I would like to forgo my goal line report for staff's report, as well as I would like to defer my rush line report to next month.
sounds good.
And then
All right.
public comment, you will have somebody trying to get into public comment, and it relates to the vaccine or the rollout and partnering with Metro Mobility or Metro Transit. I believe
Perfect.
I
I
believe
look forward
Nikki.
to-
I believe Nikki's trying to get on under public comment.
Okay. I look forward to hearing from the public at the end of the meeting. Okay, so that was everybody unanimous. We have unanimous approval. Let's move on to the minutes from last month. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Carrie Sheldon, seconds.
Is there any discussion on the minutes from last month? None heard. All right, I'll go through the list. Oh yeah, I vote yes too on the agenda. I didn't realize I didn't call myself. Claudia,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Patsy,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Yes.
Sam, Jasmine, Eric,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Chris, and I vote yes as well. Thank you all very much. Let's dive right into I think we have Blue Line first. Sam O'Connell, Sophia, and Nick, take it away. I'm guessing Sam, you will start us off here, but dive right in, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, TAAC members. So happy to be with you. I'm so happy to see so many of the names that we've worked with over the years when we've talked about Southwest. Our purpose today is to talk about the Blue Line extension. So as Chair Finley mentioned, we do have Nick Landwer, who's in our office that leads design, and then Sophia Ginis, who I think a lot of you also know, who leads our communications and outreach with the project. So I know we have a half an hour, and we want to share where the project is today. Pretty key moment happened in terms of transitioning last year, so we'll talk about that. We'll share with you some project principles, and we'll also share with you kind of some alignment options, but would like to reserve kind of the last maybe 5 minutes of the presentation, Chair, if it's okay, so we can engage with the committee to see how's the best way to stay connected and communicate on the developments of the Blue Line. So if that is okay, maybe Jason, if we can move to slide 4, please. We'll just jump ahead to slide 4. Thank you, Jason. So many of you probably have heard about the Blue Line extension. So again, the Blue Line extension is the extension of the existing Blue Line that travels from on the south side from Bloomington through Minneapolis into downtown Minneapolis. The extension of the Blue Line then would continue to move west out of Minneapolis and then begin to move northwest through our communities of Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and ultimately on the northern end, a city of Brooklyn Park. So that was a lot of the work that we have been doing. And part of that original project had the Blue Line alignment in a freight rail corridor. So over half of the line, 8 miles, was within the Burlington Northern Santa Fe rail line. And our hope was always to work with the freight railroad to coexist, right? So they would be on their tracks, we would be on our tracks, but we could operate in the same right of way. And we've tried for many years, and that unfortunately did not happen. And in the meantime, the needs for transportation, the needs to connect destinations didn't go away. Even though we were looking to work out an agreement with the freight railroad, those needs, I would even say, continue to grow as more people moved into the communities, more opportunities for education came about and jobs. So what we heard from community is that we definitely need to move, we need to do something different. So in 2020 of August, so August of last year, Met Council, in conjunction with Hennepin County, decided we need to transition and we need to look for other options of moving the project forward. And that pretty much meant not being able to negotiate with the freight railroad and kind of bringing back a little bit of that onus back onto the project of figuring out how we can connect our communities. Still very important to do that, but we just may have to do that in a different way. Jason, if I can have the next slide, please. So we engaged, we kind of rebooted and started out with our advisory committees again, started working with our policymakers late last year and figuring out how are we going to do this, because this is unprecedented. It's not very often you get to this project and at where the previous alignment was at 90% design, basically 90% designed in terms of understanding where we were going to be in terms of alignment, where the stations were going to be, how it was going to interact with the community, and then had to pivot. So we kind of dialed it back a little bit and thinking about what's best in terms of working with community members and as we move forward, and what is the work that we can continue to do or pay reference to as we move forward. So what still kind of holds into in our project. So the Corridor Management Committee, which is primarily made up of policymakers, came up with alignment principles that that we engaged on, we talked to community members on, but we really kind of just said we need some framework on this. So going forward, we have to understand that this is a federal project. We are a federal project at this point, and we want to maintain that status, because as we know, the federal program helps pays for the capital improvements of these projects. So we want to maintain the federal status of our project. So that means speaking to the purpose and need, the benefits of this project, maintaining the mode, so light rail transit, minimizing travel time where we can, however, maximizing ridership. So as we look at new areas to serve, that we are truly serving our community members, maximizing the opportunity for both community and economic development, and then of course maximizing our project rating so we stay competitive with other projects from around the country. And probably more that also came to mind is, when appropriate, make sure that we are serving people and their desired destinations with low, especially areas with lower rates of car ownership and vehicle access, and those with mobility challenges. So that definitely rose up, something we addressed, but I would say that a higher priority has been put onto that as we have this new opportunity to look at a different alignments. Jason, if I could have the next slide, please. So as we said, we wanted to maintain as much as the existing alignment as possible. So really connecting Target Field Station, where we meet up with the blue line and the green line, and bringing this north and northwest to Brooklyn Park. Serve as many of the existing cities as possible. A lot of our communities have put lots of time, lots of energy to make this line a realization, both in their community and working together as multiple communities do to really see a major project like this to its fruition. Importantly, too, mitigate the negative impacts. And as we all know, with these large-scale transportation projects, they come with benefits and sometimes they have impacts. So we want to make sure we're complementing existing and planned metro transit ways. So in particular, the C and the D line in the area. We want to, again, just ensure that we are reducing any sort of impacts to the environment, to our residents, to businesses. And we want to ensure and support safety for all people and make sure whoever is walking, biking, and rolling, that they feel safe and that they're connected, and reducing our carbon footprint as well. Jason, next slide, please. So that was kind of like talking about the alignment and how it is serving communities. Part of what the Corridor Management Committee also outlined were principles for engagement. How are we going to talk about the project with our community members? So very key principle here is that it has to be meaningful, and this Corridor Management Committee went on to define what meaningful is, and that's really to honor and build on previous community engagement work. We've had community members where they remembered going to their first meeting in the late 1980s. So over 40 years of work have really been applied. We don't want to forget that. Part of engaging is extraction, and we don't want to lose that information from community members. We also know, and in particularly during the time of social unrest and during the pandemic, is that we really need to meet the needs of individual communities over in the corridor. We understand this is a very hard time for folks to give us additional time of theirs when they're also managing through the pandemic, also where they've been impacted by some of the social unrest. So we are very mindful of when we're asking for information, how we're asking for information to aid in the development of this project, but just also want to just make sure that we're connecting with the TAAC and the representatives here, so we are doing it in ways that make sense. Jason, next slide, please. So again, just making sure we're hitting all of our communities and ethnicities and incomes and abilities. So all of our community members for which this line is going to be built for is also a part of it. And that we will use goals and priorities that are developed with the community to help us inform decision making, and that strategies are appropriate to fully represent all of our communities. Jason, next slide, please. So we will talk a little bit about project goals, and basically the number one goal that the team is looking forward to and kind of working with community members is at the end of hopefully this year, the end of 2021, is that we have a community supported alignment. So what does that mean? That means that the community is really supportive of an alignment that meets their needs, that really shares with us that yes, this is something that they want and is going to serve them in the future as well. We are not interested in just showing lines on and saying, well, tell us what you think because we think these are the best ones. That's not how we want to engage with our community members. It's really like hearing from our community members and understanding their needs and how can we build the best project. Next slide, please, Jason. So the image on this slide is just to share that we've developed our project principles late last year. The project management team has developed some initial routes through early of this year. And then basically in the middle of March, we have shared what those possible alignments could be. And Nick Landwer will walk through those alignments here shortly. But just wanted to also share with you that through late spring and summer, we'll continue to evaluate those alignments, a lot of with the project principles in mind and being able to share that back with the community. And then again, hopefully by the end of winter of this year, maybe even early into next year, 2022, where we've identified a route that we can move forward through the engineering and environmental process. Next slide, please, Jason. So slide 11 here basically just demonstrates that we are going through an initial screening with these routes. We will develop a draft report and we will take input on that. We will do the outreach and engagement on that in many different ways and strategies. So working virtually and hopefully also working in person in a very safe way with our community members. We will then bring that input into a final draft report that we will release for final comments. And again, just begin to hone in on that community supported alignment that we can do advanced engineering and environmental work into 2022. Next slide, please. So activities and beyond, we still need to do some conceptual engineering. We don't have all the answers, so we are beginning to just work into that right now. So what we really do have are just lines on a map that Nick will go through, but does that alignment, is it above ground? Is it below ground? What does that look like as it goes through communities? That's where we need to do additional work and also identify potential station locations. We need to evaluate the project benefits and impact. So again, you know, how does this work for getting folks to their destinations, and are we minimizing any of the impacts of a project like this? And then that's really the work for the end of this year. Next year into 2022, so beyond 2021, as I said, getting into that environmental analysis and start looking at engineering plans and design details. Next slide, please. So initial route identification, and I am going to turn this over to Nick Landwer, and Nick Landwer will share a little bit of how we got to our project areas and the potential alignments. Nick.
Thank you, Sam, and I want to thank the committee here for inviting us back again. It's been a few years since I've been here to give an update on where the project has been and receive feedback from the group. But this has been a valuable resource from the committee and from members that have been on it. I know specifically Ken Rogers. You know, we've spent probably the last 6 years discussing the project, getting feedback, having a discussion on the best way to tackle a lot of the issues and elements regarding accessibility along the project, and we've gone out there and walked the pavement and and looked at existing things going on. So this is very valuable to us to have the input from this group. As I start going forward here, I just want to maybe reiterate a little bit of what Sam said. As we start with the route identification, these are going to be lines on a map that we believe, based on our project principles, are viable options moving forward. And they're really for a discussion to talk with, bring out to the communities, get input on, are we going the right direction? Do you like this route, or would you prefer a different route? Did we miss something here as we're evaluating it? So we're really looking for input, looking for that discussion as we move forward here. So as a project team, we've broken down the entire alignment into 3 areas for consideration, and because each one of these areas has a little bit different flavor or factors to it that help us with what our route recommendations or recommendation routes to look at and consider are. So at the very north end of the project, primarily in Brooklyn Park, we've identified that as Area 1, and Area 1 is not really affected by the freight rail corridor. So we are at 90% plans with our previous work, and so we would continue, and we're looking at maintaining that. Area 2 is basically just still in Brooklyn Park, but just north of I-94, and goes down to the south end of Robbinsdale, so right around where Lowry, West Broadway intersect in that area. And this is the cities of Robbinsdale and Crystal in that location. And what we're doing there is trying to maintain our commitments to these communities that we've been working with for the last few years, look at options that are as close as we can get to the previous line along the freight rail corridor, and move from there. And then where it really opens up quite a bit more is as we get down into Minneapolis, the north part of Minneapolis, and that's where we have a few more options to consider, and probably a little bit more work to roll up our sleeves on. So all the options, or the road options, we're rolling out again. I want to reiterate, we've tried to base these. We've based these on our adopted project principles that Sam covered. These are, again, conceptual. We're trying to make them as applicable as we can to previous work we've done, because we've done a lot of work in the last 6 years. We want to maintain what we've done the best we can and build off of that. And we really do want feedback from the community and have a discussion on what did we get right, what do we need to look at or also consider, and what are some of the key destinations and connections that we need to be considering as we're doing this evaluation. Next slide, please, Jason. So this is the rollout. Area 1, again, not affected by the freight rail corridor up in Brooklyn Park. This map shows the previous alignment that runs down West Broadway Avenue from north of 610 up where the target North Campus is. Oak Grove Station is the identified location or station up there, and on this map is a blue line along West Broadway that indicates the stations that had previously been presented, and we are recommending to continue those. So again, on the north end, we have an operations and maintenance facility that's not shown on this map, but it's on the very north end of the blue line. And then those blue dots with the gold in the middle indicate station location. So Oak Grove Station, that's north of 610, serves a new to be developed area, as well as the existing target campus on the north. As we go down at 93rd, we have a proposed station at 93rd, serving more of a commercial, industrial, a little bit more business jobs destination. As we go down to 85th Avenue, more towards the middle of this map, this is a key station with that's right next door to North Hennepin Community College. So we see this as a major benefit to the college and to ridership and being able to get students and staff to work and home. And also there's a Hennepin County Library in this location, and they are considering a center for the arts in this location also. So this is really an opportunity to get access to a lot of these facilities that are either in place or being planned. The last station we show here in Area 1 is towards the south end, and that's at Brooklyn Boulevard. And this station is a key connection to some commercial shopping in this area. A few grocery stores and shopping businesses for people to access in this area. Next slide, please. We'll move on to the next one. As we start going south here, we move into Area 2, and this is primarily, as we leave Area 1, we're still on the north end in Brooklyn Park. Oh, back one, please. There we go. Thank you. We're still in Brooklyn Park, but we're also including Crystal and Robbinsdale through this location. On the map is the previous alignment. It's showing in a hatched gold line was the BNSF right-of-way. Also on that map, it shows 3 locations for stations that had been that were in the previous design, and those were at 63rd Avenue, where there's a park and ride, an existing park and ride now. A station at Bass Lake Road, and we had a station at 42nd Street along the railroad corridor or 42nd Avenue North, excuse me, in Robbinsdale. So on this, staying true to our previous commitments, trying to keep as close to the previous alignment we have and serve those communities. We looked at what our opportunities are through here, and there was a lot of geographical barriers, not very well shown on this map, or is Twin Lakes, Crystal Lake in this location, and the Crystal Airport really start having barriers for us to get a continuous route north or south. So what becomes apparent is that Botno Boulevard or County Road 81 is really the route that as a staff that we're recommending to move forward with, and we've worked with the cities a little bit on this to see if there's other opportunities, but really what we're focusing on is 81 is a good option through here. So as we start on that north end, where we're meeting the blue alignment, our previous alignment up in Brooklyn Park, we connected in there, and the proposal would be to run at grade center running with our tracks through there. And as we come down south, again, as I mentioned, there's an existing park and ride at 63rd. We would recommend to keep a station at 63rd to continue that function that used as a park and ride also, and keep that commitment. And then in this location at 63rd and down even at Bass Lake Road, we're still running parallel adjacent to the BNSF railroad, because that they're right away for that railroad is right next to County Road 81. Moving down the map to Bass Lake Road, again, we had proposed in the past a station here and a smaller park and ride. We're continuing with that recommendation and keep a station in this location. And this is a main access to the city of Crystal's business district, so they can go down Bass Lake Road. There's quite a few businesses along there that lead into a lot of businesses along West Broadway Avenue. As we start getting south of that Bass Lake Road station, the alignment starts to diverge from our previous alignment on the freight rail corridor. As we get into Robbinsdale, that right away along 81 starts moving farther to the east from the freight rail corridor in the case for most of Robbinsdale, probably 2 to 4 or 5 blocks away from where that corridor was. So as we're getting down to Robbinsdale, we have a lot more options down there. We did have a park and ride proposed as well as the station at 42nd Avenue. Obviously, that's going to be a few blocks away from where the alignment is now going down 81. So we'll need to work with the city about how we can get the alignment on 81 through the city to be compatible with how they're developing and their vision of the city, to promote the businesses through there, to make sure that as we're working through the design, that we're promoting connectivity for the city, that we're not posing as a barrier. So we'll work on things like pedestrian access going through there, that it helps us for the station, but it also will help, crossing the roads in this location. We'll also work with the city and the communities to determine where the best spot is for a station location or locations in this area. On the south end of the map, there's where Lowry Avenue on the map, it's in orange, and West Broadway Avenue is in green. The black line converges with those right there. And that's where North Memorial Hospital is. And this is a great opportunity for us. The last 6 years, we're getting a lot of feedback about how can we serve North Memorial Hospital. A lot of questions, how could we make that work? And with the previous alignment, we were starting to get quite a distance away from that, and it's residential through there. There really wasn't a good opportunity to serve North Memorial. This new route option or recommendations would give us an opportunity to focus on that as a destination in that area. There's also quite a bit of commercial that's starting to develop in that area, as well as the North Memorial campus, and they have some clinical care areas a few blocks away, but there's also a new Hy-Vee in this location and some parks in that location. So let's move on to Area 3. Next slide, please. So as I brought up before, Area 3, as we get down into North Minneapolis, is a lot more wide open area, with a lot more opportunities to consider. We weren't quite as constrained on how we get through this area. But the opportunities that also come from this these are opportunities to maybe better serve the public, better serve quite a bit more destinations, whether they're schools, churches, shopping, or businesses, what have you. There's probably a lot more opportunities with our new route considerations. So we kind of, to roll out our recommendations as a staff, we had to take a look at a few things, and one of them was, what are continuous routes that would get us from Target Field Station so we can continue the existing blue line north up into Brooklyn Park? How do we get in and through this area of North Minneapolis on a continuous right of way, because we like to run fairly straight alignments with the train, and what are those opportunities for alignments? And we had to start taking a look at what was the available right of way out there. One of our project principles is we want to minimize the impacts and displacements to businesses and residents. So that's another key factor. We wanted to go through an area where there was adequate right of way to get the train through there and still continue with the other uses that these corridors may have, whether they're streets or try to keep pedestrians and bikes and what we can on there. So the map here is basically a heat map showing a spectrum from green, meaning there's plenty of right of way through here that we could get a light rail guideway through and continue with the road functions. And as we start going down through the spectrum, green, light green, and yellow, in this case, we believe we can work with a light rail guideway and work it in that corridor. As we start getting into the darker orange and dark, that means the right of way is getting really narrow, and trying to get a light rail through there will cause some major impacts. So we're recommended to stay away from those. So this map is one factor there. Next map, please. Next slide, please. As we set that up, another consideration is what are the existing and proposed land uses and that would be compatible with light rail, that the higher density residential, higher density commercial and business districts are the better places that we'd want to locate a light rail through here. So the map here shows some of the density by colors in it, and what it shows is the more dense corridors through this area are along West Broadway and along Lowry Avenue. So with that, can we go to the next slide, please, Jason? So the recommendation from the staff here to evaluate routes is in orange is Lowry Avenue, and that Lowry Avenue is basically from as it intersects with Botna Boulevard, West Broadway, up on the top left side of this map, over to Washington Avenue, cross over 94 to Washington Avenue, and then Washington Avenue following south towards Target Field Station. The other recommended route, we have routes and links here on this map. So two routes. The second route is West Broadway Avenue. So West Broadway Avenue on this map is shown in green and continues again, up to that North Memorial intersection by Lowry and Bottom Boulevard, County Road 81. So those are the two routes that we're recommending through here because they really meet the criteria of the project, and we feel that they best serve the project principles, the corridor densities, and have the adequate right of way. Bigger challenge starts getting to be how do we get to these two routes? So we've started to identify a handful of options that we're calling links in here that get us out of that target field station and either to route the Lowry route or to the West Broadway route. And they're showing here we have a navy link, a pink link, a red link, a yellow link, and a green link. And again, these are just options. There's options. There's probably there's a myriad, infinite amount of options that we could consider going through here. These just seem to be logical where there was right of way and the continuous and fairly direct routes. As we move forward, the recommendation could be more than what we're showing here, or it could be a combination of some of these. And I'm going to ask to go to the next slide, please. That gives us maybe a little bit better aerial view of those links. So this slide that's on the screen now, on the very south right-hand side of the screen, that's where Target Field Station is, and that's where we're connecting in with the existing blue line. And then showing here is the Navy link, as we're calling it, that comes off of Target Field Station, and very similar to the previous project where we came off Target Field Station. The blue line tracks are on either side of Southwest tracks. Not shown on here is Southwest is building a bridge structure that will loop off of that Target Field Station over to Royalston Avenue. So we would come down on either side of those tracks at grade into the 7th, 6th Avenue intersection. And before we were showing the alignment that went down Olson Memorial Highway. In this case, that Navy link continues up 7th Street. And with all of these options, we need to get across I-94 through this. So we'll look at crossing I-94 on either an existing structure that's probably improved to handle the loads of light rail and would have the capacity, or maybe a new structure for light rail, or maybe we need to do some combination of maybe we run light rail on the existing structure and move the traffic to a new structure. So again, a lot of options here. But as I follow along that Navy link over to I-94, and on this map it crosses over to the I-94 right away onto the west side and follows that right away up to West Broadway Avenue. Another option to this link would be for the Navy link over to the green link, and the green link basically connects into the Navy right around Plymouth Avenue and would follow Lyndale Avenue up to West Broadway. We understand that Lyndale Avenue in this location is residential, but most of the residential backs up to the street. There's very limited. There's no really driveways off this section. There's a couple of neighborhood access routes that would likely have to be signalized if there was a light rail through here, but we feel that we could get down here, and we have done scenarios similar to this in the past, running through here with minimal impact to the neighbors in this location. Moving over to our pink alignment, this is a little bit more out of the box. It's a little bit more work and engineering that goes into it, and actually this is probably more of a structure, and by that I mean probably a bridge coming off of Target Field Station, and it shows on the map as it kind of snakes its way through the big building you see as the Metro Transit Haywood bus garage and Metro Transit offices in this location. So it shows kind of weaving through that over the bus driveway that comes out of the bus garage, and then over to the 4th, 5th Street ramps, and there's some right of way along there, along kind of the southwest side of those ramps, that we could follow the pink route up to the green route at Plymouth Avenue and Lyndale again, or and that pink route would likely mostly be on a structure, a bridge, pretty much off of Target Field Station over to Plymouth Avenue. Unless we were to connect into the red link that we're showing here, and that red link we would likely drop it down to grade and then continue up 10th Avenue to Washington Avenue, and it could follow Washington Avenue up to West Broadway, or continue up Washington Avenue all the way to Lowry Avenue on the north side. Also shown in here is a link, a yellow link along Plymouth Avenue that's between the red and the green, and this is just another potential link to get things connected through that area. So those are the route options that we're proposing to the community, that we're looking for feedback and input and conversation on, and looking forward to input and questions.
Thank you, Nick. I know we're at time, so I'm just going to move through the last couple slides just to, we definitely want to hear some thoughts from the team here today, but we also want to provide the tools as to how to still connect with us and share your feedback. We've walked through a lot of possibilities, and what we would love to hear is what you think about that. What is resonating? Maybe there's a possibility that we're not showing and we need to know. So we are working with communities to hear from our members, to understand and maybe begin to kind of like pencil this out a little bit better so we can really design a route that meets the needs. So we're also talking a little bit about goals and what the project should be doing. So what's the best way that TAAC members can connect with us and folks in your network, people that you interact with? And if, Jason, we can move to the next slide just real quickly. We have a few different ways to do that. On the project's website, bluelineext.org, we have an interactive map that you can leave your comments. You can also see what other people have commented on potential station locations. Do you like West Broadway, or do you like Lowry, or do you have questions about some of these things? Any of your ideas we are welcoming those ideas. We would really like to hear them. There's also a link to a survey that also can provide some feedback, and that goes right to Sophia Ginis, who's also on this virtual meeting with us, and I think many of you have worked with Sophia, so she's taking that in. I think she shared with us yesterday that over 800 responses are coming in through the survey. We want to make sure your thoughts, your voice is also included in that. So please, please join us in filling that information out. We also want to come to you. So please invite us to your community events, your network events. And Chair Finley, we're also happy to come back and provide updates to the TAAC on what we are sensing from the community, what feedback we've received, and we want to share that back out to the community members. Just want to talk a little bit about, sorry, Jason, if we could go to the next slide, please. So we are looking at evaluation criteria, and that is something that we will continue to engage in, and just make sure that we're hearing from communities that transit is reliable, that it's frequent, it provides access, that again maximize the benefits, and it's supporting the overall community goals and providing healthy communities, both in environmental practices and as we think about climate change. And then more importantly, as we know about these projects, how can we address equity and begin to reduce those regional disparities that we have? Next slide, please. And part of that, as we look at it, is that you will be hearing more from us actually this week on how we begin to talk about community benefits and making sure that we're doing equitable development and we're not displacing community members, that we have some tools that can help us address gentrification. As projects come into communities, they do have these impacts, and we want to get out in front of them. And we also recognize that the previous alignment with the project also brought investments in communities that are not going to be part of the project that we have right now. When you see the routes, when we're sharing the route information, but how do we still continue to address those investments that made roadways safer, that connected them better to communities, that provided good, reliable ways to still provide transportation in a way that the community sees the benefit. So that's also the work that we're doing. Jason, if we could just move down to slide 26 real quickly. It's just a a way to share with you our project website where you can have at your fingertips the news, the maps, the surveys, kind of what we're hearing from community members. Also, just like TAAC, our meetings are public and they are presented. And in fact, Jason actually helps us so much with that. So thank you that you can also receive the information, receive it kind of coming to your phone or coming to your computer. Also engage with us as staff. And then we would also ask that if you follow social media to add us to your social media channels as well for the latest and greatest updates. So with that, Chair, Nick, myself, and Sophia are here to answer any questions, but we also know we are over time and you have a full agenda as well. So happy to come back too.
This is David. Thank you, Sam and Nick. I would encourage TAAC members to use the tools that the Blue Line team is providing to give any detailed feedback on the routes. I do want to allow members now, though, a couple minutes to ask questions or provide comments to you. But if it is regarding detailed feedback onto these different fun route options, please try to do that through the tools provided. Given that, yes, we are tight on time right now. But would anybody like to ask a question or make a comment?
This is Heidi. I do
David?
have one comment to make,
Go
and
ahead,
that
Heidi.
is, it's a lot of information to take in for someone with processing problems. I just hope when you have this all laid out and when it really comes into place, that I can actually understand how to use it, or do I need to bring a friend that understands the map better? Because there was a lot of colors and a lot of things you were talking about, and it was a lot to take in, and I got a little lost, but at the same time, you're trying to clean it up, and I get it. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention for people who have processing problems, you know, and maybe a disability, like I have multiple disabilities, not just processing. So we can understand how to use this in the near future, so I can go more places, because I'll never be able to drive at all. So I'm your #1 candidate for this kind of stuff, just so you know. Thank you.
Thank you,
David,
Heidi.
this is
Go ahead.
Yeah, David. Sam, you guys have done a great work on Southwest. Quick question: has it ever been considered to extend the Blue Line into Anoka or Anoka County, since that is a growing part of the metropolitan area? Because it seems like the Star Tribune just had an article where the North Star is in trouble. And was there any thought about bringing it into the city of Anoka?
Mr. Chair, TAAC members, yeah, early on, I think community members did express that desire, to extend, and if we could probably extend all of our light rail lines a little bit further and dig it deeper into other communities. So right now, our focus is to just kind of honor the principles of the existing alignment to see how we can solve for that. I would also say that that is a continuing question, and we've actually expanded community representation on our corridor management committee. So maybe if we're not expanding the rail line, we're still thinking about our transit system as a network, and that can bring community members to the line, and then kind of build up some of that ridership. And then when we do get to that point, we can understand how folks are using the system and begin to think about it that way. But yes, I appreciate that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will give room for one more TAAC member to make a comment or ask a question. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you, Sam. We appreciate the update. I can speak for myself to say that I'm excited that this Blue Line has new life in it now. Happy to see this moving forward. But yes, we do look forward to, once you do solidify routes, we do look forward to another update. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us be here with you, and looking forward to coming back. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's dive right into Rush Line. And Andrew and Jim, take it away.
Yes, thank you. My name's Andy Gitzlaff, Senior Transportation Planner with Ramsey County and the project manager for the Rushline Beer project. And with me today is Jim Gersema, who's our design engineer for SWLRT. And who's controlling the slides? Is it Jason? All right, perfect. I'll just let you know when to move forward. And as we're getting set up on the first slide, I'd just like to just say a few things. You know, we're really here today to give a high-level update on the project and just increase the awareness of TAAC members. We've been very fortunate that Daryl Paulson has been involved in our community advisory committee for the project. I know he's been giving you updates throughout the process. That's been very helpful to build up of that earlier communication. A couple other notes too is that, you know, this project still is early in the process. We are going to be having an environmental document released in another month. But we've done preliminary design, but we haven't done any of the final design. So we expect this to be first time we're in front of the TAAC, but not the last time. We expect to come back more into the future. And then a third point is that we've been working pretty closely, even with us Ramsey County as a lead, but with Metro Transit Met Council. Charles Carlson is our primary representative on this project too, to make sure that what we ultimately design and develop fits into the Metro Transit brand and has consistent features and amenities to the other transit lines in our region. So with that, we can go on to the next slide. And what this slide is showing is the overall Rush Line corridor map. So this is the selected route from back in 2017. It travels from downtown St. Paul to downtown White Bear Lake. It's 15 miles in total, and there are 21 stations as part of it. If you're able to view the map, you can see a yellow highlight in the background. That's essentially where we're sharing space with former rail right-of-way that is now home to Bruce Vento Regional Trail, which will remain within that right-of-way as well. We're also using a series of different county roads and MnDOT trunk highway right-of-way for this project. And in my next couple slides, what I'll do is I'll actually walk through this alignment in more detail. And then one final note, I know in the last presentation we talked about expansion. Us too, we're focused to White Bear Lake today, but looking to the future with growth areas in Washington County, it's not out of the question that future expansions would be considered down the line. We can go to the next slide. A couple quick facts about the project. It would be consistent with the other BRT and light rail, where it would run 7 days a week, early morning to late at night. Service every 10 minutes in the rush hour periods and approximately 15 minutes throughout the day. Looking at some of the key destinations along the way, Maplewood Mall being one of them. It's about a 30-minute travel time downtown and another 14 minutes to get you downtown White Bear Lake. Something unique too about this corridor is there's over 50 different hospitals and clinics along the line that this provides an opportunity to connect to. And then our location entry point of downtown at the north end allows a transfer to the green line at 14th Street Station. So don't have to go all the way downtown if you're trying to get to points west in the region. And we can keep going. And the next 4 slides are going to walk through the corridor in a little bit more detail. There's only a couple different colors that are used on our maps. Yellow being where we're running the bus in mixed traffic, and then purple being where we're running the bus within a dedicated guideway. And for us, that could mean either a separate roadway or simply lanes that are within the existing road that would be dedicated for transit only as part of the project. So as I walk through, I'll highlight the different areas and the different treatments. Starting downtown, we would serve both the front of the Union Depot and the back of the Union Depot. And the project would travel on Wakuta and Sibley as paired streets, and then 5th and 6th Street as paired streets. There would also be a station at 5th and 6th. One thing unique about that station, TAAC members may be familiar with that from Gold Line because we'd essentially be serving the same stations. Those stations would be built as part of that project. We're proposing another new station on 10th Street. We would be using dedicated lanes on 10th Street as the current proposal. And then our next station would be 14th Street, as mentioned before. It's right in the middle between the Green Line, the Capitol Complex, and Regents Hospital and Gillette Specialty Children's Care Facility. And then from there, we would travel north and serve the Mount Airy Public Housing Complex on Jackson Street. After that, the corridor travels east on Pennsylvania Avenue, which becomes Phelan Boulevard. And for a lot of that part of the corridor, the area in purple is where we would essentially be either converting the outside lane or adding an additional lane that would be just for transit. So that will allow transit to have that travel time reliability, especially in those congested periods. Along Phelan, there's stops at Olive and at Cayuga, which are medical clinics for health partners nearby. Payne Avenue, which is a north-south commercial corridor through St. Paul and Paul. And then Arcade Street, the station would actually be up at grade at Arcade Street level, providing some really good north-south bus connections and service to the Seeger Square development. Continuing to the east, our next station would be at Cook Avenue near the Hmong Village Shopping Center, and then at Maryland Avenue near the Phelan Village Shopping Center. And this area is also where the project would start to share space with Bruce Mental Trail. So there's right of way between 70 and 100 feet, which is adequate to fit both the 2 lanes for the bus and the lane for the BRT. And we can move on to the next page. As we continue north, this is where we're in that former rail right of way, a station proposed at Larpenteur Avenue, and then a station proposed at Frost Avenue, which would be in the city of Maplewood. There's been a number of recent redevelopment activities that have happened in that area, often referred to as the Gladstone area. North of that is Highway 36. We're proposing this to be a station that includes a park and ride facility. So this would be the first park and ride of 3 as part of the project. We can continue to the next slide. The next slide here is we actually leave the rail right away, and what will occur is the bus will leave the rail right away, travel down on Beam in a dedicated lane in the center of the road, serve the existing Maplewood Mall Transit Center, which will allow for a lot of different transfers to take place, and then come back on Beam and use Hazelwood, which is a local street, to get us north up to County Road D. And then at County Road D, the project would then, the route would then follow the rail right away again to Berkeley Road. That's currently where county ownership of that railroad right away ends, and north of there is where it's actually still in existing use by BNSF. So much like on a Blue Line earlier example, we needed to find another route to get us north. In this case being BRT, traveling over a quarter mile to Highway 61 in this area proved a good solution. So we have a station at Berkeley Road, we have a station at County Road E, and at Cedar Avenue. And then we can go to the next slide. And then after Cedar Avenue, we are showing this as purple. We'd basically be getting our dedicated lane by converting the shoulder into a transit-only lane. And then as we get into White Bear Lake, there'd be downtown White Bear Lake, there'd be 2 stations, one at Whitaker Street, which is the Marina Triangle mixed-use development area. And then in downtown White Bear Lake, between 7th and 8th Street in Washington, where the buses would lay over as well as turn around to head back south. And we can move on to the next slide. This map, and many of you have probably seen this before, is the graphical depiction of the future rapid transit network in our region, both existing and future lines. This represents that all-day frequent service. So you can see by the purple line indicating Rush Line that this really fills a gap within that Northeast Metro region. And we can move on to the next slide. I mentioned earlier that this corridor is bus rapid transit. A couple of the unique characteristics about this BRT line in particular, I mentioned the points where there'd be operating its own space. That's approximately 70% of the corridor would be with its own lane, and that helps with that reliability and speed of service. The buses themselves, we are looking at low floor buses, articulated 60 foot. So that will, Jim will talk a little bit more about the boarding process, but what we're trying to do is line up that those entry points with the platform to minimize and make that boarding process as easy as possible. The stations themselves, they're a little bit bigger than an arterial BRT station, but not as big as a light rail. And they will have ticket vending machines and fare card validators in the pylon side and all the typical features of a Metro Transit station. And that prepayment of fare is what really allows you to get the rapid within bus rapid transit. And we can move on to the next slide. I mentioned earlier that we're still early in the process. We are in this environmental analysis phase. Ramsey County is leading that phase in partnership with the council. Once we complete that, which will be this fall, we will transition the project to Met Council as a lead, and then we become a partner within it. And then that will take us through the project development phase, final engineering, construction, and ultimately operations. In order to get to where we are right now, we have done preliminary engineering. We've done some station area planning, and we've completed a pretty extensive public engagement plan leading up to this environmental assessment. If things go according to plan, construction would be expected to begin in 2024 with an opening in 2026. And we can move on to the next slide. And I mentioned we were going to talk a little bit more detail about the boarding process. I know that was the TAAC can provide some great input to Goldline about that on earlier presentations. And I'm going to have Jim Gersema speak to how we've incorporated that into our rush line design.
All right, thank you, Andy. For the rush line project, we will be utilizing a 10-inch platform height. That is consistent with the approach that's being used on Goldline, so there's going to be some consistency between the two projects in that standpoint. It also allows for the entire Metro Transit fleet to be able to utilize these platforms. All the buses can board and dock at a 10-inch platform. One of the main advantages of that 10-inch height is that this still does allow the bus, the rapid transit bus, to dock at these platforms and have the front of the bus lower down through their suspension system. We call that kneeling, and provide a level entry at that front door when the bus is able to pull up within 2 inches of that platform edge, but still having the flexibility that if there's situations out there such as snow and ice in winter and the bus can't get that close to the platform, still have that space available for the deployment of a ramp so that we can ensure that we have the flexibility to provide that accessible boarding experience at that front of the bus in all conditions. Next slide. So with the rest of the platform, we are anticipating the amenities consistent with other bus rapid transit systems in the region. On the screen, there's an image of an orange line planned BRT station that shows the different elements there: a shelter, ticket vending machine, an information kiosk, fare card validators, pylon, and seating. And so that's consistent with what is planned for Rushline. The Rushline project is not at the stage of design where any of those elements have been designed, and so we can't show you specific examples of what will be there for Rushline. That design is yet to come in the next phase of the project. Next slide. As we plan for that next phase of the project, we can tell you that the shelters on that platform are anticipated to include a canopy, windscreens, heating elements, seating, and have some of that informational signage included within them. That is in order to maintain that same consistency of what we are used to experiencing in the rest of the BRT system, and provide that customer experience that we have grown to expect as part of a bus rapid transit project and system. All right, next slide. And I think, Andy, you're going to cover the environmental assessment part of the project and where we stand in that realm.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. So I mentioned before that we're getting close to publishing this environmental document. This document's going to examine potential benefits and impacts of the project, including land use and community cohesion, traffic, pedestrian and bike access, park and recreation uses, and historic and cultural resources. And we are firming up that engagement plan right now, but that we will have online meetings that people can participate in. We're also looking at, because of the timing of this meetings would be in June, if we can do as a safely a in-person type engagement event for people who do not have access to those online features. So more of those details are to come, and we will share those with the TAAC as they become available. Next slide, please. One last note too, I mentioned this earlier, that we've done pretty extensive public engagement. We're always doing engagement. If there's other groups you'd like us to reach out to, we'd love to take those suggestions or ideas that you have here today. Since we started this phase in March 2008, we've had roughly 200 events. Many of those have been focused in areas where there are low-income populations or people of color that have typically not been represented well in planning processes. We've spoke with approximately 3,400 people as part of this. Our online engagement's been pretty robust as well, with our project website, contact form, interactive maps, and surveys. And then as part of our public record, we have over 2,600 comments recorded through this phase. And that the input we've gotten really has informed decision making. It's helped us with the design of the stations, the design of how the BRT and the trail interact within the rail right away. We've actually reconfigured a few stations and added a few as part of public input that we received as part of this process. And we can move on to our next slide. Again, I'm ahead of myself on each slide here. So this is the dates of the anticipated public engagement period, May 11th through May 25th. And after the public comment period, the last step is that we would be seeking a environmental decision from the Federal Transit Administration, and anticipate that to be a finding of no significant impact. And what that'll allow the project to do is then move on into that next phase where the project goes to that council, which we've talked about before. And we can go to the next slide. And that's the final slide. Below our ways that you can reach and get in touch with the project, including our email, our phone number, our website, as well as our location on Facebook. So both Jim and I would be happy to answer any questions about the project. And as said before, thank you again for having us on your agenda, and we look forward to coming back many times into the future as this project progresses.
This is David Fenley. Thank you, Andy and Jim. Do any members have questions or comments?
This is Claudia. Just a question on the ramps. Do you have ways, in case that ramp doesn't work, is there a way to use them on a manual way, or will they always get stuck in snow and rain or not work at all? Is there options to have them work?
Yeah, I think I can take that. So the standard procedure is for the bus to dock tightly to the platform edge and just kneel down to that spot where we can get a level boarding experience at that front door. The deployment of the ramp on the bus is only in those cases where that specific docking procedure isn't able to get to the tolerance needed for level boarding at that front door. We are, up to the mechanical standards of the bus and how that ramp does deploy in that case. But those buses, BRT buses, will be maintained at a high level, and we anticipate that the instances of any mechanical errors with that ramp deployment to be pretty low. And once that's known, those buses will be returned to the garage for that maintenance activity.
So I won't get stuck on a bus someday and not be able to get out?
We don't anticipate that, but I can't guarantee anything in those regards.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
This is Heidi. Two comments is, how low is the bus going to get? Because the picture you showed, because not that the bus drivers don't always lower it. And it feels like I do a thump, you know, when I get off the bus sometimes. Depends on where you park the bus. And then the other thing is, I've actually had to use a ramp on a 68 that actually was malfunctioning, and the bus driver saw it too and everything. So how often are you maintaining the buses? Because I actually saw a lift that needed some serious medical help, you know, in being fixed, but he was able to get it out and onto, because I have my cart, and because he knew he figured out that I can't get off because of the height and everything, and he didn't lower the bus. So he said, "Do you want me to do the ramp?" And I said, "Yes." And the ramp had some serious maintenance needing help type thing. So how often out of the year do you fix it or make sure that the bus can lower for people who don't need the ramp but need to get off it safely?
I can speak to this, Andrew and Jim, Andy and Jim, unless you have a direct answer. So this is kind of an ongoing for the TAAC with just general bus ramp issues, and then more specifically for BRT, how close they pulled to the curb, given weather, and also kneeling to curb level. From what I understood from the presentation, you'll kneel to curb level when possible, and then if more access is needed, then the ramp will be deployed. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's
that
the way I understood it too.
that's correct. And I may get some info here from Charles too, that if the boarding can't happen where it docks and you don't need ramp deployment, and the ramp is deployed and it's broken, bus drivers can still manually deploy that ramp. So there is a sort of a third level of backup as part of that.
Yep, and they've had to do that before with my chair before. It's a pain in the ass, but it does. It has happened, but I don't anticipate it happening on the BRT. The high level maintenance plan that they have and the high usage of that line will actually prevent them from going dormant and having the debris underneath and all that stuff that gets collected into there and makes that ramp not work.
Thank you, Daryl. This is David. We are short on time, so and I do want to. I think Daryl, you had your hand up as well, and I want to give other members opportunity to ask questions. I would remind, please try to keep questions to the scope of the presentation. This is more on the route, less on technical issues that happen in general with buses. We have other ways to bring those up, but I do appreciate everything everybody brought up. Daryl, go ahead.
So Andy, I don't know if it was you that brought it up or if it was your co-partner, but you guys mentioned that you added additional stops to the rush line. And those came as a direct result of community involvement and community output. How often do you see that happening, and what routes did you add because of added community input?
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. I think we added those fortunate early enough in the process where we could still, make our balance of station access and overall travel time work. So I don't anticipate additional stations to be added. The two that we added was the one serving Hmong Village, which is if you don't know, it's a number of different vendors, both
absolutely,
vendors, farmers market, and it provides the more direct access to that, and then across to the Duluth Case Rec Centers right there as well. That was through some early engagement involvement. And the other station was up more northern at the Berkeley Road. We are always turning there, but that is a pretty high employment area with a number of businesses right in the area. So that was a desire from the business community to see if we can make a station work there, and we were able to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andy, for that. I mean, I definitely I look forward to the project. It's exciting to work with such an eager team that wants to get these details ironed out in the very beginning. So I welcome you coming back to us many times over the next few years, and it's always a pleasure to work with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I've got a question. To the speakers, forgive me for not remembering your names, Jason and the other guy. But this rush line is gonna be affecting Maryland Avenue only, or is it gonna run down Rice Street? How is that gonna? Are we gonna be eliminating different bus routes like the 3 or the 62?
I can address that. We're actually more to the east of Rice Street. We do cross Maryland, but we're crossing it perpendicular. So we're traveling on a former rail right of way, so that limits the amount of interactions we have with running an existing road right of way in the distance there. As far as the existing bus network goes, at this point we haven't proposed eliminating anything as part of the service. As we get closer to an opening, usually about 2 years out, that's when we'll work with council to see, not looking at reductions of service, but areas where we may want to just tweak some of the different lines to have them better connect up to the rush line, but not actually removing routes is not something we're considering.
Which council are you going to be presenting? Because I'd like to be there. Would that be the rent?
This is David. Carrie, that was a fantastic question. And it seems like you're actually a little bit ahead of the game here. We'll definitely have Andy and Jim or whoever from this rush line come back and engage with us before any final decisions are made. I would hope before any final decisions are made on the elimination of bus routes, because I know that there are a few members here right now that probably use those bus routes. But it is a good question.
Chair Finley, I just have one quick comment for Andy, and I was wondering, is Cassie still working in their office?
Cassie's still at the county. She's in the county manager's office.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So
all right.
And my question really quickly is,
go ahead,
you
Heidi.
do some redesigning. Can you be very clear? Because when they redesigned in the early 2000s, where we had to, in St. Paul, where to stand, I had to relearn how to use the buses because the person they hired was outside of Minnesota. So when you do the redesigning, think about Minnesota, think about everyday weather, think about everything you can think of when you're redesigning, even if you get rid of, even when you rebuild and everything, because I have to be able to understand how to get there and do it and go home and get there. So please, that's my #1 pet peeve, because not only people with this walking ability problems, but processing too. Thank you.
Great advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Andy and Jim. We appreciate it, and we look forward to future updates. We are now going to move on to our legislative update from Brooke, who I think I saw in the room. Are you here, Brooke?
I am here. Are you able to hear me?
All right. Yes, at least I can.
All right. We'll assume it's good then. First of all, Mr. Chair, committee members, thanks for having me back.
Can we get a little louder, please?
Get closer here.
Thank you. There we go.
All right. So just happy to be here to sort of provide an update from last month's update on the legislative session. Legislators just got back from their Easter Passover break on Tuesday, yesterday, and there are about 6 weeks remaining in the legislative session. They're required to adjourn by May 17th, which is, coming up pretty quickly here. Yesterday, between Monday and yesterday, there were literally dozens of omnibus bills that were released by House and Senate Finance Committees. And all of those omnibus budget bills have to be passed by those committees by Friday, April 9th, which is 2 days from now. So this is a pretty chaotic week of committee work, reviewing those bills, taking public testimony, working through amendments, and then needing to get those bills out of committee today, tomorrow, and for sure by Friday. So it's a lot of really quick work. For our part at the council, we are still reading through all these omnibus bills, trying to understand them. The council isn't just transportation, so we're looking at provisions that impact parks and our water activities, housing, public safety, judiciary. There's a lot of things in all these bills to go through. Just to remind you from my comments last time, the state is working with a budget surplus of about $1.6 billion, which was a huge swing from the previous budget forecast that projected a $1.4 billion deficit. So that change sort of impacted how the committees were thinking about doing their work previous to that update. Let's see. Again, this is something we touched last time. The governor's budget proposal would use some of the federal relief funds that Congress has approved to basically help us fill a structural budget deficit for this biennium and the next biennium. Just to put some numbers to that, the transportation structural position for the state fiscal year 20 and 21 would be a negative $243.6 million. In fiscal year 22 and 23, the deficit would be $160 million. So that's where those federal funds are being used to backfill those deficits. And those federal funds obviously are a great relief to the state in not having to figure out a way to address those structural deficits in this biennium and the next. Also included in the governor's budget and our initiative is reauthorization or new authorization for regional transit capital bonds for fleet replacement. This is legislative authorization for the council to issue bonds. The numbers are for 2021, 48.4 million, and for 2022, 50 million. That would let the council issue those bonds, and those bonds are really critical in providing a local match for federal funds for fleet replacement. And that fleet replacement applies to Metro Transit, but also Metro Mobility, the suburban transit providers, and Transit Link as well. So that's another, it's small in that it's only one paragraph in a budget bill, but it's really important for us to try to secure that authority. As I mentioned, the House and Senate transportation committees released their bills and walked through those yesterday. They're pretty substantial bills. We're still working through those, but even just a quick analysis shows that the House and Senate are going to be taking very different approaches on their budget bills this year. The House is proposing some new revenue for transportation, including a metro area sales tax for transit. They're also making some adjustments to the motor vehicle sales tax, which is one of the major sources of transit funding. So that's something we're trying to sort of understand how that would play out and what that would look like. The Senate, is about as far away from that as you can get. The Senate bill actually would reduce most of our general fund base for transportation and have us rely almost solely on those federal relief funds for the next, for this biennium and the next. So, between where the House and Senate are at, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done in the next less than 6 weeks until the end of the legislative session. As you can tell from my comments so far, the budget is sort of the big focus right now, but I'll just remind the committee that we do have a policy initiative that we're really hoping to get some traction with, and that is allowing the council to establish an administrative program for fare enforcement. And that would allow civilian personnel to issue an administrative citation for fare evasion instead of having sworn police officers issuing criminal citations for fare evasion, which pushes that into the court system. Those aren't generally, it's very rare for prosecutors to consider that worthy of the time and resources it takes to bring a criminal action to the court for not paying a $2 transit fare. We think we could create a fairer system so that this administrative citation would be more commensurate with, the behavior of not getting a ticket before you board a train or a BRT bus. And that would allow us to have more official personnel on trains and on buses to sort of help with people feeling secure and that there are eyes and ears on the train that are from Metro Transit. So that was kind of a lot. This is a week where everything's really in flux. Everybody's sort of scrambling to figure out what's in all these dozens of hundreds of pages of bills that the House and Senate committees are putting out. On Friday, the committees will have passed all of their bills, and then the next step is for the full House and Senate to pass their bills and come up with their budget proposals as a whole. After that, then it's time for conference committees where the House and Senate sort of fight it out with the administration to come up with the state's next 2-year budget before the constitutional deadline of May 17th. So just everything's pretty much up in the air right now, but I'm happy to try to answer questions if committee members have any.
This is David Fenley. Thank you very much, Brooke. I'm sure that there are some questions. I'll get it kicked off here. Is it fair to say that in regards to both budgetary points that you mentioned, the federal funds and the bonding requests, is it fair to say that any citizen reaching out to their legislator to support that would be appreciated by the Met Council?
Yeah, legislators are very responsive to hearing constituents reach out. That's always helpful to especially on smaller ish. I say smaller, not in the sense that it's not important, but something like RTC bonds, it's not the most attention grabbing initiative that they're dealing with. So just getting that on their radar to be aware of is helpful. So it's not forgotten or seen as less important than it is.
Fantastic. I'll just have one more question, and I see a couple other people who have questions, and I will pass it off to them. Just kind of a blanket, reminder. We got some policy wonk folks here on our committee. We also have some folks who have some pretty good relationships with legislators. So I realize you all are poring over many pages of omnibus bills, but if you come across things that that you would like us to address, the time frame is short, so members wouldn't necessarily be able to speak on behalf of the committee to legislators, since we didn't vote as a group, but that doesn't mean they can't, as individual citizens, do that. So as you're poring over this, if you do have time and do want to send me or our staff at the Met Council an email just reminding us of things that would be beneficial to the disability community, that essentially narrows it down to anything that the Met Council does involving transit, budget lines, anything that that would benefit, that would ultimately, in my opinion, benefit the disability community. So just a reminder to you to feel free to shoot us emails on updates of things. I know it's a time crunch, so you might not have that luxury, but I will pass it to, I think, John. Did you have something to say? And then Daryl?
And quickly, I've developed solid relationships with people formerly at KSTP who still have a line there. They're doing wonderful coverage of disability issues, unlike any other station. And if I could be in touch with you either by phone or email, that would be one in, because it's such a crowded agenda. I don't know how you get coverage given George Floyd and COVID deaths and so forth. So thanks.
Thank you for that.
And are you? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Daryl and then Patsy.
Sorry about that, John. Are you done?
Yeah.
My comment to you, Brooke, was I really think that the detail that you gave this time was very informative. More importantly, I'm going to ask you a more particular question. The invest dollars that we're looking at, and you're saying that we're looking at the invest or the sales tax of the invest dollars. I know at one point when that program was created, we were only looking at a 0.5% sales tax, and then I think we went up to a full cent sales tax. So is there additional proposal to increase that 1 cent sales tax or that 0.5% sales tax to something else? And if so, this goes to David's point. Many of us on this committee have lobbied in individual capacities, and I'm also really intrigued on looking at the ambassador program or the transit ambassador program, where it does take the fare evasion out of a criminal element and make it it makes it a basically a citation, a civil citation, I think you'll get a lot of folks that will understand the value of public transit once we decide to take cops off our trains and our buses and put them in places that they need to be, and we bring in people that are trained to teach navigation and to detect fare evasion and small crimes that we often see on public transportation.
Yeah.
So if there are bills that you can give us bill numbers where that is actually addressed in the omnibus bill, we would, or if you could give us statute language that says, okay, on this page, blah blah blah, this is where the invest dollars are, or on this page, blah blah blah, this is where the transit ambassador program sits, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And maybe that can't be done at a high level meeting like this, but it certainly could be done offline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll give you, so thank you for reminding me. I think, Member Paulson, you raised at the last time I joined your meeting, the issue of sort of the collateral consequences of fare evasion being a criminal offense, and that it's an offense on your record that might have impacts on housing.
Absolutely,
other areas
yes.
of a person's life where, that's something that should be looked at in terms of fairness and unintended consequences. But I will mention that proposal, which was moving as a standalone bill, is in the House File 1306, and in the Senate it's Senate File 1513. That proposal in the House is on the General Register now. It passed the Transportation Committee and the Public Safety Committee. In the Senate, the bill passed the Transportation Committee. It was amended, but it still retained that authority to let the council create the program. So the proposal is moving through the legislature. It hasn't received a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee to this point.
But does it need to by statute if it's possible laid over for inclusion, or if it meets its deadline in the House, wouldn't it automatically trigger a conference committee or not?
Yeah, that you raised the issue of nothing is ever really dead at the legislature. For policy bills, it didn't meet the second deadline because it
Right.
didn't pass the policy committees in the Senate. However, you're really bringing things to my mind. It is in the transportation omnibus bill. They
Right.
included the authorization in that bill. So to that extent, it is still in play. And as you said, it could be included in the final omnibus bill. There's a month of negotiations that are gonna be kicked off next week, so we'll hope for the best there.
David, I've got a question.
Okay, just 1 second, Ken. I saw Patsy's hand up before. Do you still have a question, Patsy? And then we'll go to Ken. You're muted.
Patsy, you're muted.
Plus, I was going to ask, Brooke, what were those file numbers you just said?
So this is the bill that would allow the administrative citation program, and the House file number is 1306. Representative Elkins is the chief author of that bill. And in the Senate, it is 1513, and Senator Dibble is the chief author of that bill.
Okay. Okay. And Brooke, I don't know if you're aware of this this is actually something that, because I myself have had a traumatic brain injury, one of the co-members of us that walk around there in purple,
I've seen
previous
you
years,
in your group, yes.
with a purple group. One of the ladies, some years back, was on the bus. She has a walker. While coming off the bus, because there was snow, her front wheels got caught. She went head over heel. One thing led to another. We're talking 6, 7 years later. Have you heard the bills about that were titled something like driver training on disabled?
I believe I saw that the bill was introduced, but I don't recall a hearing in the House or Senate on that bill.
Okay, for everybody, there was a House File 529 and a Senate File 1963 that was started by the Brain Injury Alliance, where it was to try to get better education. Maybe that sounds too harsh, for the drivers, for just that simple reason that I said a lot of people here in our group would probably be very interested in, and that is making sure that the sidewalk in front of where the bus stops is clear. Because like I was telling Brooke, this lady happened to get off of the ramp, and there was a bunch of snow that was built up because something to do with the gas station plowing off their snow. The embankment came down. Anyhow, she got caught between the ramp and the snow, fell forward. Many years later now, still dealing with the results of it all. Jeff Nakbar and her has gotten these two bills going, but they made it through the first deadline of making it through one body, but they did not make it through the second deadline of the second body. But they still will be active come next year. They did not so-called die. And I promised Joy and Jeff that I would make sure that I said something today at this meeting so that other people could do just what we're talking about. Contact your representatives and let them know about these two file numbers, especially because a lot of it's going to affect you guys as to whether you can and cannot get off the bus safely with walkers and your scooters.
This is David Fenley. Thank you, Patsy. We'll go to Ken, and then we will move on. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, thank you. Brooke, I had to step away for 10 seconds, so you may have said something, but I missed it. I've heard yesterday that there was a hearing on fund reduction in Metro Mobility's budget. What's the scoop on that?
I am guessing that would be referencing the Senate Transportation Committee hearing on their omnibus budget bill. And that bill does reduce the council's general fund base appropriation down to $5 million each year until fiscal year 2025. And so that is a reduction in state funds for Metro Mobility, and the rationale for that the Senate is offering for doing that is because that funding can be backfilled by the federal relief fund. So they're essentially clawing back state funding for Metro Mobility, and with the assumption that we will be able to use federal funds to cover those costs. We are obviously very concerned about that because we have a pretty substantial structural deficit, as I mentioned earlier, in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So Chair Zelli testified yesterday about that concern.
Yeah, and I'm not quite understanding because I thought that Metro Mobility funding had its own line item and it was not any longer part of the general fund. So can you clarify that?
Yes, you are correct that Metro Mobility, in the last budget that was passed, for the first time, Metro Mobility got its own separate line item. That line item appropriated general fund dollars, which still need to be appropriated by the legislature in law. So it's good that it has its own line item. It really draws attention to Metro Mobility and that the legislature has to make sure it's funded. But they do still have the authority to, for lack of a better term, change that number. And that's what we're seeing in the Senate bill.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, David, can I say one thing quickly?
Go ahead, Heidi.
When Heidi's done.
Is Minnesota legislators watching Washington, D.C., because our president wants to do a big funding for transportation and roads and stuff, but is people with disabilities, the ADA, American with Disabilities Act, going to be a part of that, or are they thinking, or is it all going to go to things that the disability community cannot be a part of? I just putting that out there so you can bring it back or maybe look at it, because I don't know how this is going to play out, but I don't know how Minnesota is going to ask for money in the near future and how you're going to report back to us about how that's going to be spread out if we get a chunk of it or if it even passes. So I just want to bring that to your attention, because sometimes we do these beautiful projects, but people like us with disabilities can't always use them because they don't fit, because they're not thinking the bigger picture. There's more than just people on bicycles and cars and motorcycles and so on. So keep that in mind when you go back and, do your stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heidi. And Brooke, thank you very much for the update. All right. We have 8 minutes left. Let's see if we can do this. Ken, did you want to add on to the blue line update, or would you like to forego?
No, I'll forego.
All right. Chris, did you want to talk to us about green line updates?
There's more information than I can do in a minute and a half. So go to SWLRT.org. That tells you everything.
Thank you. I know they're well into constructing that line. And then Daryl, you wanted to forego the Golden Rush Line reports. That's correct. You wanted to skip that. Okay, good. Perfect. So I have a couple things to let you all know in my report. The first thing, an idea that I've been batting around in my head, and this is less of a question, more of a seed planting to the committee members, is I would like to start possibly having short, you could call them presentations or meet and greets during our TAAC meetings with different departments in the Met Council, so they can get a feel for who we are, and vice versa, so they can so we can understand different departments in the Met Council. Just a thought. You all can bring ideas at a later meeting. And I also want to update you on a program that got started pretty quickly, actually, within the last, I would say, month. It's a collaboration between the Department of Health and Metro Transit. What the Department of Health wants to do is do a mobile vaccine bus tour around the entire state. Metro Transit, from what I understand, is providing in kind the buses and then the drivers, and then MDH is going to staff it. They will be going all over the state, focusing on communities that that might have missed or not have the same access to vaccines at vaccine locations. There is a group that's working with MDH specifically on accessibility, not on this topic exactly, but in general. And then this topic was brought to that group. I'm part of that group. We did tour the buses because they have to be retrofitted. They have to be used for something that's different than what they were designed for. The standards for fixed route buses are different than, say, the standards for a mobile vaccine site. So they're retrofitting the buses and addressing concerns that were raised. But that is something that was moving pretty fast over the last month, I'd say, and I wanted to update you all. But I hope to have that be an agenda item in May. But those are my updates for you all. And now we will go to public comment. I know we have at least one member of the public who wants to comment, and that is Nikki. You are more than welcome to go ahead, Nikki.
Hey, Chair David Finley and TAAC members and everybody else who's here. Good to see you virtually. I miss coming to the meetings once in a while. It's kind of a staple of the St. Paul area, I think, is the TAAC meetings on the first Wednesday of the month. So it's weird. But I want to talk just briefly at you real quick about my thoughts. I'm just coming to you as myself personally. Obviously, I wear a lot of hats, but I've been concerned about the transportation issue. Thank you, David, for giving that update about what you did say that was going on. The issue that I feel that hasn't been addressed in the disability world, and I have personally brought it up multiple times in multiple situations, and I have not really gotten any real responses from people. All I hear is, oh, that's a good idea, but really, nobody has moved on it. And so what I want to say is, in the legislature, we have a House File 2113 and Section 2, Subdivision 4, Community Assistance. It says the bill states that someone will help arrange for and prepare to obtain a COVID-19 vaccine and support transportation limited members of the communities with transportation. And, I feel that legislation is really generic or general, and my thoughts and concerns around it and what I shared with the legislature is that if you're a person who takes Metro Mobility, there's going to be a lot of problems, and there already has been and already is, obviously, with taking Metro Mobility to get your vaccination. And so my thoughts are, has Metro Mobility been at the table speaking about these issues? Because I have not heard them. And I think that, I think personally, we need to look at this as a broad issue and understand that maybe some policy changes need to happen under Metro Mobility for folks with disabilities to be able to take Metro Mobility to get their vaccination. There needs to be some better coordination with timing and, anyways, I could discuss this further if anyone would like to with me. But I wanted to bring this to all of you because I know you guys are very concerned and engaged in transportation. And I think this is something that really hasn't been addressed enough, in my opinion. And I have tried to discuss this in my other hats and haven't gotten as far as I'd like to. So I'm coming to you as just a regular disability advocate saying, hey, we need to figure this out. Let's get together and figure this out. And I have tried to call multiple people and haven't really heard anything from Met Council about this. So I don't even know what their stance is on the bill, but it's an equity bill. It's a good bill. We need to support it. It's Jay Jong and I can't remember the other representative who wrote the bill, but it's a good bill, and disabilities need to be included in equity at all levels. So let's do that together. Thanks for letting me have a moment of your time, and I can't wait to see you guys again, and gals, and people.
David, can I say something on what Nikki just said? Because I got my vaccine and saw exactly what Nikki's talking about.
Thank you. Thank you. Just hold on one second. Hold on one second, Heidi. So thank you very much, Nikki. The public comment and the member comment are not designed to be discussions, but member comment is right now. So we can have member comment. I'll give it just a couple minutes since we are at 2:30, but Heidi, would you like to make a member comment? And then John.
Nikki makes a good point, because if Metro Mobility had the regular way they do rides, there was no way I probably would have been on time to get my shot in Egan, because that morning I saw tons of Metro Mobility coming and going and dropping off like one person to get their shot, at different times. So if it was the normal way where there's all these problems, we've been talking about for years, I think we would have a bigger problem. But Nikki brings up a good point, because I thought about that. So I'm on Nikki's side of making sure in the future that, because I asked that and they said that they had special transportation for people like us, but I don't know where to go and where to see it. So I was lucky Metro Mobility could take me. So Nikki is right, and I wanted to bring that, and I wanted to tell you guys that, because and I also saw staff bringing people with disabilities. So it's a system that's very broken in a way. If we didn't have Metro Mobility, I'd be screwed, because none of my workers can take me. So I will hook up with Nikki, or Nikki can Facebook me or talk to me. Whatever she's got to do to get my attention, I will work with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. We are over time, but if John, you have a burning member comment to make, go right ahead.
This is Ken. I do too.
Okay, we'll go to John and then Ken. Go ahead, John. You are muted. You are still muted, sir.
There. The TAAC board needs to, as quickly as possible, and establish a media oversight and board regarding, not board, people together talking about this, to hold the media accountable. KSTP does a wonderful job. I am meeting next week with Rob Lear and with and other nationwide people about establishing a conduit for creation, grant writing for journalists. But the thing I want to say is that we Access Press is on life support, and we need to develop mechanisms to tell stories about specifically transportation issues and to hold media accountable. And anybody who wants to talk with me, please call. I'm also fundraiser for Access Press, and I would consider myself just an advisor. I'm not going to push you toward anything, but any thoughts you have about AP and how to improve the paper content and so forth, feel free. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Ken, you can take us away, and then we will adjourn.
So the one thing I wanted to mention to people, I think it's really, really important. So there was mention earlier today about someone that uses a walker and was dropped off in a snowy location and ended up falling. It's really all of our responsibility. When we encounter stuff like that, we have to report that, because Metro Transit has a process in place that when that gets reported, they send somebody to clear it up. And if nobody says anything, nobody knows anything to go clear it up. So I just urge people, legislation is great, but we oftentimes don't need to do that. We just need to start reporting things to Metro Transit so they can address it. They can't address it if they don't know about it. And it's not just good enough that we put the responsibility on a driver. You would think that the driver training would include information so that the driver could report that kind of stuff, but they don't. So it's our responsibility when we encounter stuff that's not working or there's a barrier, we really have to report that. Otherwise, there's no way for Metro Transit to know something needs to be fixed. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Ken. With that, we will adjourn. I appreciate you giving me 5 minutes more of your time, and we will see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Dave. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Nikki, get a hold of me.
Yeah, me too.